Hello, everyone. My name is Matt from Mysterious Galaxy. I always forget that part, but I'm getting better. I've remembered my name this time. I am pleased to be joined by Jeezy Schmidt, or Gail, as she likes to be referred to, and Meaghan McIsaac. The two of them are going to be talking about their recent books. Meaghan's is The Bear House, which came out in October, right?
Yeah, just October 5th, I think. Yeah.
Which is disturbingly long ago at this point. Cannot believe we're almost to Halloween.
Yeah.
And we're also talking, of course, about Gail's book, The Dreamweavers, which came out a little earlier in September. Yeah, there you go. So if you are new to Crowdcast, I'm going to do the Vanna White thing real quick. To the right, whichever way that ends up showing up, is the chat. Feel free to talk to the authors, talk to people in the crowd, say hi. And if you have questions, you can go ahead and put those down below in the Ask a Question tab. And of course, we want you to feel free to buy the books as well from Mysterious Galaxy. You'll find the button for both of their books down in the middle there. And you can get signed books by Gail, who is conveniently pretty local to Mysterious Galaxy. Okay, I think that is all I have to say. So have a great event, and I will be back at the end.
Oh, we're on our own.
Yes. So yeah, it's really great to be here with you today. And I actually really loved The Bear House and how such a lush fantasy it was.
Back at you. I finished the Dreamweavers a couple days ago, and yeah, it was just such a beautiful fantasy story that I was totally involved in. Loved it.
Thank you. Yeah, I was curious. So what was the inspiration behind The Bear House?
So this book, I started writing this in 2013 or 2014. So it was a long time ago now. But usually all of my stories start with a scene, where I'll just have an idea for a scene. And we were actually living in the city, and I'm from Toronto, and we were living in the city, and we were living near this big giant castle that isn't a real castle. It was just built by a really rich guy who wanted a castle and in the 1800s or 1900s, early 1900s. And anyway, so they have events there and stuff. And we went one day, and there was just this sort of library room. And I just kept thinking of that room. And then this scene popped into my head of this little girl looking out a window and seeing her sister run across the front green, and this giant bear chasing after her. And the story kind of built up from that scene. So yeah. How about you?
That's really similar to how the Dreamweavers came to be as well. It started with an image in my head of a fisherman sitting on the clouds. And I was thinking, what if instead of fishing for fish, he was fishing for dreams? And that's kind of how the story started. And I know I wanted it to be set in ancient China because in a lot of traditional Chinese lore, there's a lot of that dreamlike element. So characters would switch from the real world to the dream world. So I kind of built it from there. So yeah, that's funny. It came from just one scene in both our cases, right?
Well, so I wanted to ask you, because your main characters are twins. Are you a twin?
No. I kind of wish I was growing up. I think it'd be really cool to have kind of a perpetual best friend, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So are you a plotter or a pantser?
Good question. I think I used to pride myself on being a pantser a long time ago, and then just found myself in way too many sticky situations trying to get through a book using the pantsing method. So now I I started trying to plot, and then I found I would get like kind of bored if I was too rigorous in my plotting. So now I do like a mix where I sort of pants my way through 3 chapters, and then I plan 3 chapters, and then I go and see what happens, and then at 3 chapters I'll plan again and stuff.
Yeah.
How about you?
That's kind of similar to what I do too. I like to have a bare bones outline from the beginning, so kind of like a beginning, a middle, and end, and like a general idea of how the story will go. And then I start from chapter 1, and I find that as I write during the process, a lot of things change, but it's good to have that structure in the beginning. I don't think I could ever be just a pantser and just write.
Yeah.
I admire people who do that.
Do you find that you ever find yourself deviating from an original planned ending, or do you usually stick?
Yeah, I find that a lot of times the ending deviates, so I like go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
So for the bear house, did you do any research for your story?
Not a ton, like at first with the general outline, but then once you're in it, because it's a completely made up fantasy world, but it's heavily medieval inspired. So just just researching things like, what kind of clothes would make sense, and what kind of stones the man are made of, and things like that. But yours was pretty heavily researched, right?
Yeah, I did a bit of research on life in the Ming Dynasty, where the Dreamweavers was set. I wanted to immerse readers in kind of life in ancient China. So I looked up the imperial court and how things worked, like rankings of the imperial family, how the city was structured, things like that. But a lot of it was also made up. So there's a magical library, for example.
So how do you keep all your research organized? Do you have like notebooks or like a story Bible, or how do you organize all of that?
So I write using a tool called Scrivener. I don't know if you've heard of it. Yeah, it's very useful. And there's a backend matter where you can kind of dump all your research. So I can kind of go through it as I write.
Oh, cool. I haven't tried Scrivener yet, but I keep hearing great things. So
yeah,
maybe I should give it a go.
Yeah, that's awesome. I also wanted to add that I really love the quotes at the beginning of each chapter from your books. It was quotes from the ancient lore and legends, right? Like within the book. So that was really cool.
Thank you. That was probably the part that gave me the most trouble trying to keep all the made up historical people straight. And so I had like a pretty extensive story Bible document that had like just lists and lists of who all these people are from their history and stuff. And it's just funny because it's all not a real place.
Was it by hand, the story Bible, or was it on the
No,
computer?
it was a Word document that just kept ballooning.
Cool.
So did you want to talk about how you develop your characters? Because the relationship between the twins was pretty, I found it really strong and really believable. Like you were so good at letting us know who they were within like just a few pages. I couldn't believe how quickly you established your characters.
Oh, thanks. So for my characters, I like to base parts of their personalities on people I know. So for example, one of the twins, Yoon, he's super logical and cautious, and that part's kind of based on my husband. And I wanted to add a counterpart for him that's kind of like the opposite. So someone who's more impulsive and brash, and that's his sister, May. And that goes into the story's like main legend about yin and yang. So it's like it's this Chinese concept of opposites and how like two sides make a whole. So I wanted to kind of portray that from the twins.
Yeah. I thought they were so strong and clear within like just a few pages, and so I really admired how you developed your characters. And do you find that they come to you in much the same way with every story you write, or do you have a different process every time you have a new character?
So I try to think of like what type of character the story needs, I guess. So like what's the best fit for that story. So for my first book, for example, the main character was more shy and withdrawn. And that's because throughout the story, it was meant to kind of see his character development as he draws out of his shell. So it really depends on the story.
That's super interesting. So do you find that it's the sort of the plot and the story that comes to you first and then the characters?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Oh,
what about you?
For me, it's totally opposite. The characters come to me pretty much first, and then I sort of build a problem around them. So that's cool. That's cool to hear.
Yeah. I'm curious how you came up with like the sisters too from the Bear House. Like I like seeing how they went from these kind of spoiled, kind of sheltered sisters to kind of holding their own, like as the book progresses.
Thanks. How did I get them? I don't know. I think I drew a lot on, like, I don't have a sister. I always kind of wished I did, but I drew a lot on. I have 3 brothers, so my relationships with all of them, and just sort of conflict between siblings, and how that can kind of balloon into a sort of more stressful situation. And I sort of the cousins, Bernadine and stuff, I sort of treated her as like a sibling too. So yeah.
Are your brothers and you close in age?
Yeah, but I'm the oldest, and my next brother is only a year younger, and then there's a bigger gap of like 3 and 4 years. So
gotcha.
Pretty close. Yeah.
I have siblings, but they're like 12 years younger. So I think the dynamics was more different growing up. I felt like more like their mom.
How many siblings do you have?
I have 2, and they're 12 and 14 years apart from me. But they were really close growing up, so it was fun seeing that.
Cool.
Yeah, and speaking of characters, so our books, The Bear House and The Dreamweavers, both feature, I think, a number of strong female characters. And I was wondering, is there a character that is most similar to you?
So that you'd asked this question to me earlier, and I had to really think about it, because I wish I was sort of as fearless as Aster, or as confident as Ursula. I think the person I probably relate to most in the book is Dev, the bear keeper. He's a little more cautious, but he's also kind of like irritable. And he's a little shy. So it's not one of my female characters, but that's probably who I relate to the most. How about you?
For me, I think I relate to May a lot. So she's emotional and impulsive, and I feel like sometimes I tend to react very emotionally too, without kind of thinking things through. And I also feel kind of similar to Lotus, who's
I was going to say Lotus.
Yeah. So Lotus, she's a poet, and she tends to hold grudges. And I think that's something I used to deal with a lot, like holding intense grudges. But it's something I've been working on, because it's not good to hold grudges from middle school, right? 10 years later.
Well, also just as a writer reading about Lotus, no spoilers or anything, but a writer with some tapping into the magical, some magical stuff, was like, ooh, I was very excited about Lotus. So every time she came on screen, it was like, yes.
And then finally, I was wondering, what do you hope readers will take away from your book?
From the Bear House, I think primarily, I want readers to just have an escape, just a a fun magical adventure that they can sort of completely disappear into. I think also I would like, I guess it'd be cool if people read, because there's a lot of young characters in the book, and they're all really different personality-wise. So there's, you know, shy characters and impulsive characters and kind of bratty characters and kind of sweet characters. But all of them sort of have to tap into some inner strength and to overcome obstacles. And so I just kind of hope that readers can see some of themselves and feel that they can find some strength and bravery and attack whatever's going on in their lives. So that's
I really
me.
like books with multiple characters for that reason, because I think there's always one you can relate a lot to.
And what are you hoping people take away from Dreamweavers?
So I hope the takeaway that readers take is your value is not defined by your family name, but by the choices you make. So in ancient China, it was common to kind of place a lot of value on who your family was. And I think even today, you kind of see that a lot in some societies. For example, you might say, oh, I come from a family of lawyers, or my whole family were doctors. But it's really, your value really comes from like the choices and actions you make. So like the twins, they come from a poor peasant village, but then they travel to the imperial palace and kind of meet these royal children and kind of realize how similar they were deep down. So, yeah.
Well, I also really liked how the princess, she was pretty defined by her sort of given role in the world, but she was very breaking out of it herself just by virtue of her being her. And
yes.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yep. Oh, I wanted to ask, when you were writing The Bear House, were you influenced at all by like Game of Thrones?
So I hadn't seen Game of Thrones or read Game of Thrones until I think I was like 2 or 3 years into the book, and I was like, oh my gosh, they have animals on their houses. I was like totally freaking out. But then Game of Thrones has become since then like my whole life. I adore Game of Thrones. So
I actually haven't seen it, but
you haven't seen the show?
No.
Well, okay, it's all, you know, everyone's got a lot of opinions now that the last season came out. But you know, I can move past it.
Yeah.
So I recommend it.
Are the final books out yet, or is the author still not done?
No, yet? Not yet.
No,
But there I do have this really beautiful book that's about one of the, I can't remember what it's called, but it's about one of the dragon houses, and it's like the prettiest book on my shelf. So if they can keep putting out things like that, then I can wait for the final book.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess, should we jump right into questions? Or
yeah, sure. Do we know how to find them?
So under ask a question, I see.
Oh, I see. Oh, do you have control over clicking who answered them? Or clicking when they're done? Cool. Okay.
Okay, so first question, what did your research look like for these novels? What was your favorite thing you researched that didn't make it into the book?
I'll defer to you for this one, because I think you did a lot more research than I did. So,
so one interesting thing I found, and for the research, I mostly just went to the local library and looked up textbooks and also some like primary sources. But it wasn't very intensive. It was more kind of like to guide the fantasy. And my favorite thing was I found apparently one of the oldest stories of Cinderella originated in China. It kind of came out of the practice of foot binding, which which women used to do to basically keep their feet perpetually small. And the story of Cinderella was along the same lines of this one princess, only her tiny feet could fit into these kind of glass slippers. And so I found it really interesting that one of the first original stories came from China.
That's super cool.
Yeah. I touch on foot binding a little bit in the story. It's mostly in the back end. So.
Well, that was the princess. She had her foot beat down, right?
Yeah, the princess. And that's one of her character developments, because she kind of feels trapped in the palace because she's not able to kind of roam around like her brothers. Mm-hmm. But you looked a little into medieval times, right?
Yes, I did, but my research mostly looked like word comment bubbles, where as I'm writing, I'd be like, oh, she's wearing some kind of armor, I better look into armor. So then I have to like research armor, and I'd make a little comment as a note to myself to add in all the little details. So the document was full of red bubbles all over the place. Yeah, but nothing too. I wasn't like at the museum or anything. But
no.
What is your favorite part about writing for this age group, and what do you find the most challenging? That's a good question. Do you want to go, or do you want?
You can go first.
Oh, my favorite part. Well, I think I kind of gravitate to this age group. Like that's just I'm like forever 14, I guess. So I've always just kind of gravitated towards it. What's the most challenging? I think for me, the most challenging part about it, and also partly what I love about this age group, is the challenge of trying to keep the pace fast so that the readers stay interested, but also not too fast, that the story is too slim and doesn't have enough meat. So it's a challenge, because I think this age group they're pretty discerning readers, and they expect a lot of their stories. So yeah, how about you?
Yeah, I love writing middle grade because I think it's such a formative time. Like I know some of my favorite books are the ones I've read when I was 8 to 12. Like they kind of stick with you for life. So I love writing for kids that age. Plus, you get to write a lot of humor that you might not necessarily be able to write in adult books. What do I find most challenging? I would also agree with pacing and keeping the reader interested. I know for like some adult books, you can kind of go on and on for 50 pages and the story doesn't start, but an older reader would stick with you for that. But a kid would, immediately say, okay, where is the action and where is the plot, right? So you kind of don't have a lot of room to ramble as much. And I think it's good discipline too, in terms of writing.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have a favorite novel from when you were reading at this age?
I really like the book Holes by Louis Sachar.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, you can kind of see his influence in, I think, both my books, in terms of like he wrote the story within like a frame story, like kind of how the past influences the present. Yeah. What about you?
Cool. I got really into The Hobbit around this time.
That's a good one.
And the Narnia books. So those, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah. Next question. This is about my first book, An Ordinary Thing, featured time travel. How does the challenge of writing a time travel-driven plot compare to writing a plot steeped in mythology? So I'll quickly answer this. I think it was really hard to write the time travel story actually as a debut, because I had to keep track of all the dates and jumping through time. And I think like if I could go back in time, I would not make that my first book. But but despite all the challenges, it was good. It worked out in the end, and I think I like that idea, as I mentioned, of the past influencing the present. And you can kind of see that in the Dreamweavers as well, because there's basically this curse that falls over a village from 70 years ago. And you kind of see what exactly happened in the past that influenced this curse. So
That's funny. My second book was a time travel story. And I don't know if you found this, but the time travel, the paradoxes would just like have my brain melting.
Yes, the
paradoxes. For your first book, it would be like, oh my gosh. Yeah. But even for me, it was just like, I don't know if I'm smart enough to pull this off.
Yeah, I really admire Christopher Nolan, how he does that really well in his movies.
Oh yeah.
Next question is, what was the first book that made you love reading?
The first book. I can remember the first book that I read totally by myself was called Into the Land of Unicorns by Bruce Coville. And it blew my mind. It was about a little girl who gets an amulet from her grandmother, I think, and she gets transported into a land of unicorns, and it was wonderful.
Was this a picture book?
No, it was my first chapter book that awesome. I got to read by myself, without, because my dad would read to me at bedtime, and it was a lot of chapter books, and then eventually it was my turn to do it alone, and it was awesome. How about you?
Yeah. So I learned English as a second language. I came to the States when I was in first grade, and my first book I read was Arthur. I think it was The Deep Blue Sea. Arthur series.
Like Arthur the Aardvark?
Yeah, Arthur the Aardvark.
Oh, awesome!
By Marc Brown, and that was my first picture book that I read by myself, and I remember just loving it so much, and I think that's what got me into reading. So I love Marc Brown.
Were there any scenes you deleted that you wish you could have kept but had to be cut? Oh my goodness, yes. Did you have any?
I'm trying to think of some. I feel like I moved them around, but I didn't end up deleting any. Actually, my biggest problem when writing is adding more meat. I feel like my first drafts are always super thin, and I have to keep adding things. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I had like the whole opening chapter was like a whole war scene with the major, and like we saw him alive and stuff, and other chapters and throughout those book that just ended up having to be just completely deleted to make room for new chapters or changes in the plot and stuff. So, yeah, there's a whole cutting room floor.
Yeah.
With hidden treasures.
Have you ever thought about having like an exclusive deleted scene in the back of the book?
Not until this very moment. I'm kind of like, oh, maybe I should dig out that scene with the major. Meaghan, your book is the first in a series. How do you approach writing a series? Do you have your direction planned out for future books already? Good question. With my time travel books that I had done, Movers, I did have a plan for multiple books, but with the Bear House, I didn't. The Bear House was always just this first book, and then we sort of, because the world's pretty thick, I sort of thought it would be fun to go back and build more adventures in this world. So yeah, so not always, depends on the series, I guess.
see. What are the book or series in middle grade besides your own that you're most excited to read?
Good question.
Do you want to go first or me?
Sure. I've gotten really into graphic novels lately, so I've got a few Raina Telgemeier books that I want to catch up on. And then a friend of mine just wrote a series about ancient Egypt, The Secret of the Sands. So I'm going to be diving into that. How about you?
That's really funny you mentioned graphic novels because I was going to say I love Shannon Hale's Best Friend series.
Oh, yeah.
So it's about her it's kind of like an autobiography about her time in 6th grade growing up in Utah. And I feel like she captures that, like the anxiety of those times really well. So yeah, the Best Friend series by Shannon Hale. Next question. When you guys write books, do you ever wish that your books could be taken and adapted into a TV series or movie? I think that's that would be a dream for me.
That would be great. I don't think it starts out for me with that plan in mind, but if anyone called me up, I'd be super excited.
Yeah, I feel like there are definitely books that Hollywood, like quieter books that I don't know would do as well as a movie, but I think like adventure and fantasy especially, I think they tend to usually translate well. Although Aragon was really good.
Which one?
Aragon, the movie.
Oh, yeah. But the color of the dream mists and stuff in yours is very cinematic. That would be really cool to see brought to life.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think in your world too, the castles and the constellations, very it's like atmospheric.
Yeah. Oh.
I'm back. I just have to add in that I too was very disappointed in Aragon. That was my favorite book growing up, and I know that Christopher Paolini is encouraging the fan base to push for a new adaptation of it.
No way!
That'd be cool.
Maybe that'll happen, but it was for 12-year-old me. It was such a great series. Like before, I had read Lord of the Rings, and really got me into fantasy that way. So that was one of the books that got me into reading.
A redo of Aragon would be really cool to see. I'm not gonna lie.
It would. When you write, do you imagine any particular people as your characters, or do you kind of cast them in your head? I always feel like I do that when I'm reading because I have to have that visual image of someone, and I like to place people in them. But do you do that as writers?
Actually, it's really funny you mentioned that because I love watching the movies first before reading a book because I also like imagining that person like in my head. But when I write, I guess I don't imagine any specific people. They're kind of, I don't know. I kind of just imagine their personalities first, and then the descriptions come later, maybe.
Yeah, I find they also kind of end up like almost like mirages. Like if you don't look directly at them, you know what they look like. But then when you get like too focused, you're like, what do they look like? I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading Harry Potter as a kid, and I don't know. I guess I know a little bit what I imagine Harry Potter looked like, and they did a really good job casting Daniel Radcliffe because I think he looked like the original kid on the books. But I don't know what I thought everyone else looked like, really, because I don't know. We only had those little illustrations at the beginning of the chapters, and now I can't think of anyone in those roles, except for the people.
The
Like, there's
people in the
always
movie,
Yeah.
yeah.
always that disconnect when you see like the edition of the book that comes out after it's been adapted with the actors on it, and then who's on the book in the original, because usually it's never the actors, right?
But so
always
when you
not
read
clear.
though, who's your Dumbledore?
Oh gosh, I think Richard Harris is.
Yeah, me too.
Sorry, was that the first Dumbledore or the second?
That was
That's-
the first one.
That's the
wasn't it?
first one.
Yeah.
First one? Okay, yeah. I think I
Cannot
agree.
remember. I can't remember the second one, so I'm gonna hope it's the first one.
Yeah, I think it's the first one.
This is
Let's see.
my partner is much better at this game than I am.
Yeah, it's the first one. We did it. Thanks, Google.
See if she texts me right now to tell me who the second one is. Let's see. Shoot, I had another question and then I forgot it because we got distracted by talking about all these things. So I just wanted to hear a little bit more about the myths that you included in your book, Gail. I was not familiar with any of them that I know of. Maybe I know them in a different context, but would you talk about those a little bit?
Yeah. So in the Dreamweavers, I feature some Chinese mythology that I learned as a kid. And one of them is the Jade Rabbit. So in Chinese mythology, it's this rabbit that lives on the moon, and it's supposed to have these magical powers. And there are different variations on this myth. Some say that it's a pet of the moon goddess. Some say the rabbit was originally a human that drank a potion and turned into an animal. But in the Dreamweavers, I decided to go with a rabbit that basically makes potions. And as you read, you'll kind of see that the rabbit's path crosses with the characters. The potion is involved. And I also mentioned a little bit about the Monkey King, which is a very popular Chinese mythology. It's the basis behind shows like Dragon Ball Z. And the Monkey King is basically this mischievous monkey that has magical powers and goes across the sky on a cloud. And so you can kind of see the influence because I guess, spoiler alert, they do a little bit of cloud travel in the book.
Was it hard to write these non-human characters and anthropomorphize them and kind of flesh them out from their myth roots that you heard as a kid?
Yeah, so for the Jade Rabbit, I kind of gave it an almost omniscient kind of voice. Like it was not quite part of this world, but also part of this world. So it's almost like a guardian. Yeah, so it was really fun bringing it to life and kind of having it interact with the kids. So.
That's awesome. My partner did update me with who the second Dumbledore was. It was Michael Gambon.
Oh, well, there you go.
So there's your trivia for the day. Although I also like the trivia of knowing that the Monkey King was behind Dragon Ball Z. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Write that down.
So Meaghan, do you have any hints about where the next books in your series are going, or
hints?
I know it's usually tough to say, like, this is what it's going to be about, or this is the title. Usually that's no go, but like you can give some hints that we will not hold you to. Also, if it changes.
Okay. I will say that the on high, the stars, will have a much bigger, more present role in this next book. That's what I'll say. And dragons.
Dragons are always a good one.
I think so.
I need to write these down. My questions here. As someone who is, going to have kids that eventually read middle grade books, what I don't know, what is your advice to parents when like searching for these books and helping kids pick them out? I know some of you do school visits and stuff, but do you have any advice for parents? Because there's so many, and you know, you can go back a long way and find the classics, or you can find the contemporary stuff. Like, this is something I haven't looked at since I was, 20 years ago. How do you get into this whole world of middle grade?
So I would suggest asking either the local librarian or bookseller. Well, you're a bookseller. So.
Okay, so this was really just a way for you to plug us, Mysterious Galaxy. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I would say they're usually in the know about what are some of the latest books that are a must read. And I would say also go with your kids' preferences. So see if they like fantasy or more contemporary stories. And they usually know to kind of branch out from there. Yeah, I remember going to the library a lot as a kid. So it was fun.
Yeah, I agree. Where their interests lie is the best place to go. And like, don't be too picky about what it is they want to see. I know people can get kind of like, oh, well, the graphic novel is not a real novel or whatever. And it's like, it 100% is. Like, if that's what they want to read, then I think that's amazing. And they 100% should. Whatever whatever they're going to be most interested in is whatever they're happy to read is the great thing. Because you want reading to be fun, I think.
It really does feel like a great moment to be reading middle grade, though, because there is, so much diversity in this age range, and like I said, follow the kids' interests. But there's so many books that apply to so many different interests now. Whether you are into Chinese mythology or fantasy, or you want to learn about Egypt and ancient Egypt, like. I don't know. I don't remember there being so many different books, or maybe I just didn't go to Mysterious Galaxy enough and talk to our manager, Kelly, who is really big into middle grade books. So maybe that was on me. But it does feel like this is a really great time for middle grade.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I think that is all the questions. I'll just end with both of you plugging what your next projects are, if you can disclose them, and then where we can find you on social media.
So the third novel I'm currently working on is a Gothic Halloween story in the vein of the Westing game.
Wow.
It's basically about this family in the woods who invites 6 families to their place for Halloween, and they get trapped.
Is it for the same age range as
Yes.
your other books?
Middle grade.
Nice. Very
Cool.
very eclectic plots you're writing, huh? That sounds awesome. And we can find you on Twitter.
So you can find me on my website, gzwrites.com. I'm currently not on social media, but I might join in the future.
That's okay. Like, the website is good enough. Social media stuff. What about you, Meaghan?
I'm just working on the sequel to Bears, and that's taken up my whole life right now. So that's what I'm busy doing. And you can find me on my website at meaghanmcisaac.com, or Instagram is where I like to hang out. So Meaghan McIsaac Writes is me on Instagram.
Nice.
Yeah.
You can find us on all the socials. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're there. And of course, you can find us at our website, missgalaxy.com, and which is where you can go at the link down below to buy both Meaghan and Gail's books. And you can get the Dreamweavers signed by Gail. So handy when it's right there.
I have it too. Mine's not signed though. I'm gonna have to get
Oh,
you to
I
send
know
me
where
a
you can-
sticker or something.
I know where you can get a signed one.
Oh, well, that's true.
All right. Well, I want to thank Gail and Meaghan so much for joining us, and thank everyone in the audience who watched, and everyone in the future. Speaking of time travel, who's going to watch the replay. I think I did all of my duties about saying where to buy things. Yep, I did. So again, I'm Matt with Mysterious Galaxy, and thanks to both of you, and have a great night.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everyone. This is great. Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye.